Hello, everyone on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Kim Kaiser here, going live today about visibility. And y'all, we're going to take this one deep today. We're going to take this one as a philosophical point as well as a practical point. Because you guys know me, I'm going to talk about the philosophical and I'm also going to get practical. And going to try to make this as simple as possible when we talk about visibility. So, if you are here live with me, please say hello. If you happen to be catching the replay, also let me know that you were here. And throughout, let me know what resonates. Let me know what questions you have. Again, today's point can get potentially a little bit deep. It might get a little bit deep in here, y'all. So, we want to talk about visibility. I had some questions on this yesterday. And to me, there are two sides of the visibility coin. Sometimes people are afraid of being visible, of being seen. And that actually is the thing I see absolutely the most. Oh, hey, Rachel, great to see you here. And then sometimes people have the flip side of that same coin, which is they're afraid of not being seen. Okay. And that's probably more like, I think if I suffer from anything, it's probably that one because I want, like, it's part of my DNA to sort of speak my truth and have an audience of that as well. But most people fall in the realm of like some level of fear about being seen, about being visible. And this is top to bottom. I see this with like even in my own industry, like coaches and healers and people who practice all sorts of like really kind of different services. They can be afraid of being visible on social media, for instance, like getting on live and doing something like this, like out of the question, they're not going to do it. But I also see this with the leaders that I work with, like my paying clients, and I see this at all levels. I tend to work with people who are at least 5 to 10 years into their business, usually sometimes up to like 30 years. Like I have a wide range of businesses that I work with. And I will say that all of the clients I've had over the years, I can't think of anyone who doesn't have some form of this fear of being seen, this fear of being visible. And of course, when we have this on any level, it's going to impact our business. It's going to impact our whole life. But it's going to impact our business because if we are on some level afraid of being seen, afraid to be visible, and I mean fully visible, and I'm going to explain what that is in a minute. If we're afraid of that, if we are carrying that code, so to speak, then it's going to impact how many people can actually see you and come into your world and potentially work with your company, right? And so this is really important for leaders. So, and I'm going to go to the deepest level here. So, this will be what I'm about to say here in this next part is going to be for people who have a sense that on some level you understand that you're an infinite person, like that you're an infinite self. That on some level you see or you've like heard of this concept of I'm creating my reality, right? And you get that on some level. You may not have fully embraced it, but you kind of get what I'm saying because that if you don't understand this next part probably isn't going to make sense, and that's okay because everybody's where they're at. It's not a problem. But this next part is important. It's probably the most important thing I could teach on invisibility. I've never seen it this way before. I've never taught it this way before, but it's the truest truth that I have today. Okay. And this is when we're as ourselves, each of us are an individual being. And what I see about that is that each person in the world is an infinite being. We carry light, we carry the ability to create our own reality. People often have the question, how do I manifest something? You're manifesting stuff all day long. You already are. Just watch and you'll see what a good manifester you are. We don't always manifest great stuff, but we're always manifesting. Okay? And so we're these infinite beings. We carry the power to create the illusion that we're powerless. Like it's a really big amount of power that we carry. Okay. So where this comes into visibility is if we don't see that about ourselves, like if that's kind of news to you, or like I know for me, that's something I woke up in myself to when I was 8 years old. And then I shoved it down because it felt like I was too weird for the world, to be honest. Okay, just being honest here. Um, when we would shove that down, that knowledge that we know we're here for something big, we're infinite, we are great, like infinite creators. If we're shoving that knowledge down at all, that is why we don't want to be visible. And I'm going to connect the dots here in just a moment. Because in truth, if we can't see who we are at depth, at core, nobody else is going to see it either. Like it starts as an inside job. We have to see that infinite part of us. We have to see that like infinite possibility, infinite opportunities. We have to be able to see that. Or of course we don't want to be visible because on some level I think this is sort of like a safety mechanism sort of built into the human psyche, because if we're not willing to see who we are and put that out into the world, then we don't want to put out a false self really. Like I think it's just a checks and balance, right? And this is just like recently occurred to me about that piece of it. Of like it's like, well, of course we don't want to be visible because we're not really putting out who we really are. Right, and I'll tell you, like, sometimes this can come in the form of I have been guilty of this in the past, and it's something that, like, I've awoken to. It's like, sometimes we put sort of a blanket around our message or around what we're trying to say, and it dampens, like, it's like it dampens who we are, and so, of course, we don't attract in the people that align with whatever our message is. And again, this is for everybody. It's not just people who are selling like a spiritual message or a like personal development or leadership development, like really developing people. This is for everybody. I don't care what you're selling. This piece of showing yourself and the depth of who you are and the purity of who you are is like a magnet. It is an absolute magnet to others. And when we insulate ourselves, when we kind of put on our blanket and try to dress up our message and make it more palatable and hide our light, right? Then it's going to have like the effect of, yeah, like kind of throwing like a wet blanket over it, or like that old song in church was like hide it under a bushel, right? It's kind of like putting the bushel over our light, and people just can't see it. And then we have to go and do a lot of things like marketing classes and messaging classes and all these business development classes and all this sort of stuff, because we're not just shining our light for other people to see. And again, it doesn't matter what kind of business we're in, right? It like, as far as I can see, it doesn't matter. We have the opportunity to show people who we are and what we care about and what matters to us, like what really matters to us. And not everybody has to agree on all that either, by the way. We can have people who even are in our inner circle who don't agree. That piece of it, being in agreement, does not affect this piece we're talking about in terms of visibility. We can hold a lot of different truths that people have. They don't need to agree with us, but the shining of the light, man, it's magnetizing for people, right? And so when I was getting the questions about visibility yesterday, like it really just started to make sense to me. Well, yeah, of course people are afraid on some level to be visible because they're not sure what image to put out. And they say like they're maybe, I think a lot of people say they're afraid to show who they really are, but I think it's more subtle than that. I think it's like a lot of times there are folks who haven't done the work to know who they are yet, or they, kind of poked around about it, like poked at it, but then like, "Ooh, that seems scary," whatever. And I do think that first step is a little scary, but like beyond that, I don't think it has to be at all. I don't think we have to have breakdowns in life to have breakthroughs. Right? I don't think that that's true. That paradigm's prevalent in this society. I don't think it's true. I think we can have breakthrough after breakthrough, right? But we have to be willing to be who we are. We have to be willing to shine our light and see it for ourselves first. See our own light first. That's the hardest step, by the way. Seeing it for ourselves first. That's like, again, that's when we start to really embody who we are, right? But if we're not willing to do that step, the rest of the steps make no sense. Like they're not going to be effective. So we have to see who we are. When we see who we are, people start seeing us, right? And so this is why, yeah. So when we talk about visibility, it's, again, I couldn't talk about this at a surface only practical level today. Like, well, of course, just show up and, get on camera, or, like, I couldn't do it because I knew I'd be doing my audience a disservice. So y'all tell me, like, if you're in here, is this tracking? Is it making sense? Are you sort of getting a whiff of what I'm like? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Is that what that saying is? But like, this is it. And I made a couple notes, but this is ultimately, this is the bottom line message. It's simple. I'm not going to keep like kind of going on about it because it is really the simple. You got to see who you are first. You got to see what you're made of, right? If you're in a religious um organization, like I have like I've studied a lot in Christianity, like the message points towards this. Okay, what we're talking about. But it doesn't even matter what religion. This, what I'm speaking about today, is beyond religion, because all religions point to this. Most religions, I think, at least point to this. I think all of them probably do. The great wisdoms, let's say, right, point to that we're light, that we are light, right? That we're infinite in our capacity, infinite in our capabilities, infinite in what's possible for us, right? And when we can see it for ourselves and then start reflecting that back out into the collective, no matter what your life looks like, no matter what your business is, it is the ultimate in terms of visibility. And then you can get practical about, okay, well, how do I be visible? But if you're still back wrestling with the fear of being visible, the fear comes from, in my observation, my opinion, the fear comes from not being who you are, right? And so that's the simple message today. And so this is just your, then you can use anything practical. You can get on camera, you can go out and meet people at networking events, you can shine your light anywhere. You can shine your light in the line at Starbucks, for goodness sake. It doesn't take like that. You can use any method when you see who you are, and you're just willing to show that to yourself first every day, right? And then to other people. And then it's a magnet. And then there's a lot of things in life that you don't need to worry about, right? And I told that story yesterday about the ice cream for dinner, wine dinner. Like, that's all about what we're talking about here. Seeing who we are, right? The reason that whole thing has blown up and gotten a life of its own, it's the ability to see who we are, like, really honor, accept that in ourselves, and then put it out into the world. All right. Thank you all for joining me. I will be back again soon. I appreciate you being here. Go shine your light.